And I actually ran into one of the men who accompanied a veteran on the trip at the grocery store this morning, and he said he's finally recovered from the 2-day whirlwind. As for the veterans, they say the trip was unlike anything they'd ever experienced before. With all of the excitement at the Baltimore-Washington International Airport, you might think a celebrity was coming to town. But these men and women aren't movie stars or popular singers. They're World War II veterans.
I was in the Army, but I served in the Tank Corps and the European Theater in France and Germany.
I enlisted when I was 17 years old, the 26th day of April in '43.
46 veterans from Illinois traveled to Washington, D.C. last week, where they were the guests of honor at a Veterans Day ceremony at the World War II Memorial.
Some of our most distinguished deaths have come a long way just to be here.
At the World War II Memorial this morning, there were 400 seats, and the Illinois Honor Flight had 100 of them. And that makes you feel pretty special.
Veterans say it's not just that they're happy they could take this trip to see their memorial, but that they could do so in order to honor those who never could.
I was the last man transferred off the USS Bullhead because the captain wanted a combat photographer, and Charles Taylor took my place. 3 days later, she was sunk in the Straits of Lombok.
But if those fallen World War II soldiers were alive to make the trip, Martinsville veteran Carl Southard says they would be shocked and humbled by the reception.
It was overwhelming when we got to the airport. That's the only thing I can tell you. It's overwhelming. You cannot believe it. People want us to stop and have their picture taken with us. I'd say every 10 minutes. and they really want a picture of the veteran.
Now, veterans say they couldn't have taken the trip to D.C. if it weren't for their guardians, the people who paid $400 to $1,000 to accompany the vets. These people were family members, friends, or sometimes complete strangers. And one veteran on the trip got quite the surprise when he got to D.C. I'll have his story on tomorrow's 5:30 edition of Newswatch. Reporting live in the studio, I'm Barbara Harrington. Back to you at the desk. Charles Jordan's eyes have seen things most people only read about in textbooks.
I made D-Day with evacuation hospital.
Charles says his time in the military took him all over the globe. He's been in every European country except Spain and Portugal. And now the war's taken Charles, along with 45 other Illinois veterans, to Washington, D.C. to see a memorial built to honor them.
It's a great memorial. I'll tell you that. It's awesome.
But it's not just other veterans Charles shared this experience with.
Well, I knew my granddaughter was coming, but my son showed up for this. What really surprised him. I didn't know he was coming in. He lives in Texas. And to be up here with this, it was right.
Told my daughter when she talked to him last night not to let on, so he didn't have a clue.
Bill says his brothers have gotten the chance to travel with their dad to World War II sites, and this was his chance to share some special moments with his father, who helped fight for America's freedom.
These guys, they just did things that were ordinary to them at the time, but in the expanse of this country, it's just extraordinary what they did.
And as these eyes watch Charles being honored in the nation's capital at the site of the World War II Memorial, Bill says there's only one way to describe his feelings.
It's proud as a peacock. I want everybody to know my dad was there and he was one of them.
How does it make you feel that he came all the way for this?
Well, great. Just great.
They weren't operating tanks in Europe or fighting on the beaches of Normandy, but that doesn't mean they didn't see just as much as the guys.
We had one young man, he had just a very tiny piece of shrapnel, but those still can be quite powerful. Went in his tummy and came up through his throat and out one eye.
You don't think a lot about women veterans in World War II and in Korea and World War I and so forth. We don't think about them a whole lot now, but we have a tremendous number of women veterans.
Like thousands of other women during World War II, Marjorie Day spent her days by the bedsides of soldiers, tending their wounds and mending their hearts.
Women's voices and knowing that they care for you, the fellas, all, I think that means a lot to them, just that it's something different they like them. I know I had 2 or 3 young men before I left, when I was leaving, they wrote cute little poems about me.
Women didn't just play a crucial role abroad during World War II, they helped hold things together on the home front.
They had to take over where the men were gone, and that was very hard for them. They had to play about 3 different roles.
Even so, these women say their time in the service doesn't make them heroes. It just makes them ordinary women doing what they could to help their men.
We just took care of the heroes that did their work and sacrificed themselves for what we are.
But that doesn't mean they didn't feel like heroes during their honor flight trip to D.C.
Never had so many pictures taken in my life.
Makes you feel like a celebrity, I guess.
Entered service in January of 1943. Ludi and I went together, and we took our basic training together. We shipped to New Orleans together, and then he went to India and I went to North Africa.
But it wasn't just Ludi Chambliss that Hallie Lewis didn't see for years. Their good friend Howard Gowler and Hallie's brother James were also defending America, all in different corners of the world.
I was in the Navy, and I got my uniform on my 18th birthday.
When we all went in, we was just kids. And it wasn't nothing for boys to be laying in the bunk of a night of crying for their mommy.
4 high school buddies, separated by a war that tore the world apart. But no time bombs, no shrapnel, nor even dictators could tear this friendship apart.
They're the kind of guys that I would lay my billfold down there, and they would go get it, and they would bring it back to me. That's the kind of guy. Now, that you couldn't have better friends than that.
After spending years in unfamiliar places, these 4 Midwest boys ended up right back where they started.
3 of us live in Mount Vernon, and 1 lives in Bluefield, which is only 8 or 9 miles apart.
Well, it's amazing, isn't it?
And last week, these friends who've been together for a lifetime got to take the trip of a lifetime together to Washington, D.C. to see the World War II memorial.
I'd like to come down here and walk through it for 15 days, and all through it. You know what I mean?
It's kind of amazing that here 65 or 70 years later that we're still be able to go somewhere together. It's nice being on a trip with them. They're all good guys.